Hey there. In this video I've made the basic shell of what's going to be a dilapidated mansion, a haunted house, whatever you want to call it, seeing as it's almost Halloween and everyone on YouTube has to get their 2 cents in worth for a video. Here's mine. This is part one of how many parts I don't know. Small scale is labour intensive and detail is difficult, and as always I'm making it up as I go. But so far this is a beautiful building, and it's a bit of a long video, but this is the basic structure and there's some measurements thrown in for good measure for those who need them. So I hope you get something out of this and I hope you enjoy the video. These are my basic dimensions in centimetres or millimetres if you put a 0 on the end of each number. And all windows and doors and height and everything is going to be based off this single template that I'm using to create the building and expanding out from. I always do this when I do a building. I start with a doorway and usually a front-facing panel, and I work from there with the minimum of measurements that I have, like these ones here. I just use the first one I make as a template and cut out. There's 3 pieces exactly the same on this one. I should have cut out the door and window as a better example for the template, but I did that after this. And then I have all 3 pieces. This cardboard is off a wine box. It's very good cardboard, and you can just peel the little bit of shiny paper off it. Very fine, tightly packed corrugation, so it's a very smooth cardboard, and it also is really nice and strong and very thin for very good small scale building. I just cut out the arches as neatly as possible with a craft knife. Arches are always, and circles are difficult to get nice and tidy. After I pop all of them out, I just use the handle of the knife. It works a little bit like a file. Don't go using sandpaper on cardboard. You'll find it just kind of grips onto it and tears it in a very strange way. But a file of any kind would work, and the handle of the knife. And then I just use this one to draw everything up. I only ever have to measure once when I do things this way, which is great for time saving and for people like me who struggle with measurements because I just keep getting it wrong. This is my fail-safe method of getting things drawn up. I'm using like a big, it's like a popsicle stick, a giant coffee stirrer. But yeah, it's just so I can use it as a template as well. It's stronger than cardboard and smoother, and I don't have to worry about it being a little bit off. And this is my strip of cardboard for either side of the main part of the building structure. It's I think 20 centimetres by 9 centimetres or 90 millimetres by 200 millimetres. And then I will use this template so I can get the height correct from where the windows are going to run along, because this what looks like a big door is actually an opening where windows will sit in front of it, so light will get through, but it's the correct height for the windows, and I will just run it along and make sure everything is in line all the way around the entire building, and I just keep building this way. Every piece I do the same measurements. A little BD there for back door, which I just hang on to that so I could make a door later. And I'll just clean these up a little more again. They don't have to be super duper neat, but I mean, they're going to have window frames around them, but if you're not going to make window frames around something, you might want to make it a bit neater than I did. And that's the basic structure ready to go. Always do cut your windows out before you glue it together. It's very hard to cut them out once you're hanging on to it. And that's the basic main part ready to put the roof on. I should have put the roof on later. You'll see why when I start putting down all the wooden boards, the faux wooden boards. But having the roof on does make it strong to play around with. This is now building off onto the second part of the building that will come out as an extension, and I have used the exact measurements of the height. I've made up the width as a standard guess, but I'm still keeping everything running in line with the measurements that I have previously laid down. Every time cardboard falls over, it must do it sometimes up to 10 or 20 times, and I'm trying to put something together, and I just feel like Sideshow Bob stepping on a rake, just it drives you up the wall, just trying to hang on to everything all the time. Got to keep checking over and over and over to make sure everything fits before you go gluing it down. You'll have problems. I put everything back to back when I'm doing something like these. These are going to be two walls that are adjacent or parallel or whatever you'd like to say. And if you do the mirror image when you do the template tracing, it'll work. If you do them exactly the same, they will be off and you won't be able to see through the windows to the other side. This is just a little roof on the other side. I'm not sure about the angle or what it's called, but it's a bit of a roof. And I'm just going to cut this out. There's going to be the entryway with two doors going into the building, and then what's going to be like an observatory up the top, which hasn't been fully constructed yet. It will be in the next video. That's the basic body ready to go. Start putting down some detail. I'm using this very thin cardboard. It's off like instant coffee sachets. Probably a lot like cereal box, maybe stronger, I'm not sure, but it's stronger than tissue box paper, and it's just the right thickness. It's got no corrugations in it, and it'll work nicely. It'll be strong enough to be cut very, very fine without tearing or without warping. And there's a whole thing with this. I mean, there's so many types of cardboard, and you have to be choosy about what you use and use the right type of cardboard for the right job. And this one in particular is ideal for making very, very thin strips for boards. Once they've got them all done, I'm going to chop these a little shorter, and I'm going to try and lay these down as quickly and easily as possible because there's a lot of them to do. I'm using a very thick water-based glue. The thing with cardboard too is you have to be very minimal with moisture with things like paint and glue. The thicker the glue, you're not going to have problems with buckling. You do learn what to and what not to use, and you want something that is really as thick as possible. Just get them as neat as you can. It'll save having to muck around tidying it up later. I tried laying these on at 2 or 3 at a time and ended up just putting them on one at a time. It was quicker because this was, I don't know, it didn't work out. Every time I'm filming, anything I do under the camera, it's like Murphy's Law. I don't know why. I could do something 100 times without it and it would work out perfectly. And as soon as the camera's on and it's above my work, I just keep stuffing up. It must be performance anxiety or something. And you see here this triangular piece. Well, I had to go and cut it into strips because it didn't occur to me that I should have put it on first. I could have just laid it on and cut around it. So I had to do it the hard way after realising my big old mistake. About every second one gluing this down was enough too, with the spacing in between. That's the good thing about making something dilapidated. See, I try to make it as neat as possible and it comes out looking like it's run down. So, I choose the types of buildings I make for a reason. But that's our secret. Do be neat as possible. You will find things greatly altered over time with, slight mistakes, they all add up over time. And just to neaten this, I just make sure it is extremely dry, overnight dry, and then just snip it with a really good sharp pair of scissors. I'm just going to put some light through this to show you how I remove these. You can hold it up to a window or something. And then I just use a knife or whatever and do it as neat as possible. I don't know why I chose a building with so many arches. It was not wise. I probably should have just made them all rectangular. But it's too late now, and yeah. When you're 6 hours into a project and you realise you've made a big mistake, but you've committed, you have to question your own sanity. I'm going to use some tissue box cardboard for the shingles on the roof. It's just the right thickness. I don't know, I always use it for shingles because it's just perfect. I don't use it for pretty much anything else at all, because it's just got a sort of a slight flexibility. It'll lift. It can buckle very easily, especially if you wet the side that isn't shiny with some glue. It takes time to get to use this one as well. Don't use much glue if you can help it, because it will buckle. So just, if you haven't used it before, just do a little bit, watch it dry and see how you go, and then you'll know where you stand with it. These things are trial and error for everyone who starts using this as a medium. Cardboard can be very fickle, but it's also an excellent thing to use on many levels. One of the main ones being that it is free. You see how it's slightly curved then? You have to get used to using it, and how the right amount of glue will almost make it suction down as it dries. And the more glue you use, the more you're going to actually waterproof your work. So, yeah, you got to find that happy medium with the amount of glue, the right kind of glue, etc., etc. This is the entryway observatory, and I didn't need to cut all 4 this long, but I did, so I just slotted it in there to show you. But I ended up just cutting them to half the length and then putting them in the height they needed to be. I weighed them down, the 4 of them, to make the one piece. Not just to hold them still, but you'll find with smaller pieces like this, as it's drying, with say the boards being glued down, it will attempt to buckle. So let it dry a little bit and then weigh it down, and keep it weighed down until it's fully dry. Maybe do half. I did half, weighed them down, let it dry, and then I did the other half. And also, when you're drying things like this, do not put it in a very hot area or a sunny place, because it will buckle. The very rapid drying time pulls it together, and I've learned to dry. The slower it dries, the better it'll be, the straighter it'll be. I'm doing these like this because I'm just, once again, cutting corners like I always do. I'm just going to glue them down and then cut them apart and cut the windows out. Nice and easy. And this is as far as I went before I stopped, and then I let it dry. Because I just knew in my head it would start to pull itself up. It'll almost make the shape of a dish if it can pull itself into that shape. It took me quite a long time to learn how to use cardboard. I know I'm droning on, but it's one of those things that you might be building if you haven't done it before, and you're thinking, oh, what have I done wrong? It doesn't do that when she makes it, but it's just getting used to it and understanding the very simple basics of it. Light shining through again. I love cutting this out. I don't know, it's just such a clean finish. It's perfect edges. Really nice, quick, easy way to make walls with boards. If you are more confident than I am with your building, you could be likely to do all walls on a building like this first, and then assemble it as one piece afterward. I just do it the way I do it because I'm not confident with my measuring skills and I have to work at it as I go. These are the, I don't even know the name of this part of the building. It's just, you know, a bit of a fancy sort of windows. God, I explained that really well. I'm just scoring the cardboard. This is that coffee box packet again that I used for the boards because it's just the right thickness. I just scored it and I'll just bend it, and yeah, it's really nice and strong, this cardboard, for how thin it is. And of course I will do the windows before I go attaching it. Before I try to draw the windows up though, I'm going to lay it up against the building where I've still got my measurements exposed, and I'm just going to use the height that's drawn there so I can know where to put the windows. This is why I go around the whole building like this, and I just keep coming back to it so I can keep reusing the correct measurements. And then I just use my little stick to draw them in as a template and then cut them out with a knife. Neaten them up a little bit and then I can glue it down like this. You could make it stand out a little more, it depends how wide you want it. I dropped another piece of cardboard on the top of each one just as a support and to put the little bit of the roof on. This little piece, which I also don't know what it's called, but I've used a piece of paper to create a template so I wouldn't waste cardboard trying to figure out the shape correctly. And once I knew it was correct, I was able to make one or three out of cardboard. But it's wise to use paper templates, quicker, easier to play with and practice with. And I'm going to put shingles on top of these once I've got them glued down. I'm holding this up so you want to have a good look at it. There it is for you to use as a guide. I'm just putting a little strip along the roof to tidy it up. And that's the same cardboard that I used for the boards as well. It's perfect for scoring, the thickness of it, so you won't cut through it. If you use tissue box paper, you wouldn't be able to score it, it's too thin. And this is it, ready to paint. Oh, it's a bit wonky. Lucky it's dilapidated. I'm just going to put some black matte spray onto it so I can get between every single little shingle and board. I want no bare cardboard exposed on the outside. I'm going to give it a quick dry brush, a semi-dry brush of this grey with a really big brush. I did quite a bit of stippling on this as well. Because this is on such a small scale, I don't want to just neatly lay down a dry brush on it. I want it to look, I don't know, I think a little rougher than usual, and stippling helps it to look as though there are little flakes of paint coming off instead of just neatly brushing up and down the boards. This enormous brush in comparison to the size of the building is greatly effective, especially when it's really dry and it's an old brush. It's all nice and feathered and damaged, so you don't accidentally go making patterns either. I basically put this all over it. I just do the grey on every building like this too because I want to lighten it enough to take on some colour if I'm going to lay colour down, and on this one I will be. I'm using this, I think it's called elephant grey or something like that. It's a blue, but it's I don't know, it's like a grey kind of blue. It doesn't come off quite as well on this as I think as it actually looks in person. But I don't want it to be stark either. It has to be very subtle so it still looks aged and weathered, and you get this impression that it once was a beautiful blue building and now it's not so much. It's an impression. I almost completely stippled the blue on to this when I was doing this job, because once I started to use brush strokes I realised it looked a little, I don't know, a little wrong, and because it's so small, a single bristle stroke kind of stands out a little bit. You can notice small things, so stippling was the way to go. And you can see how blue it looks in comparison to just the grey. It's quite nice. I look like I'm being quite rough with this, but I am being quite gentle. I'm just so used to painting that it looks probably more confident, but I'm very, very light-handed with this, and just, you know, dabbing very thoughtfully. This looks so weathered already, and I've done literally nothing to it, which is very pleasing. I'm looking forward to actually seeing this when it's done. I think it's going to be an amazing little diorama. And that's it for this, because it's just a lot of work. If you intend on doing this, you want to put yourself aside some serious time, because this is labour intensive, but it's going to be great. And there's a lot to do. I'm going to raise it up by about an inch, so you'll see there's a basement and the top of the observatory and back sort of like a patio and a little front area that's got stairs and a little patio as well, and windows and window trim, doors, etc, etc, etc. So it's going to be beautiful. I hope you got something out of this, and I hope to see you next time.